Hello, today I'm looking at another common problem and this is another video that will be at the, beginner level of the scale. This question is about how to scale into a position, and the specific question is to know when the most recent trade is in profit by a given amount and to then place a new trade and scale into that winning position. The question didn't go into a lot of detail about how the expert advisor in question is supposed to exit from trades and how it takes the profits. It was only asking about how to scale new trades into that existing position. So what I have on screen here, I have my usual moving average cross that I'm just using as a basic expert advisor, and this is far from a complete expert advisor. I've only put it here as a framework to insert the code that you need to scale into the existing position. So you won't be able to run this with any success at all if you simply try to run this expert advisor. It's just there to show how to scale in. I've written this for both MetaTrader 4 and MetaTrader 5. So I have the MetaTrader 5 version on the left, the MQ5 version, and the MetaTrader 4 version on the right. For the most part, they are the same. So what I'm going to do is expand this to full screen so that you can see it, and then I'll tile them when there is a difference. And when I come back to there being a difference, you can see that I've tried to align similar parts of the code by inserting blank lines here, for example, in MetaTrader 4. Let me expand the MetaTrader 5 version. The property statements are all standard. I have this include file orchard tutorials scale in. It's because that's where I'm going to place the function that I'm using to determine whether we can scale in, and I'm only putting that into a separate file because it might make it easier for you if you download this code from GitHub to be able to simply take that file and then include that in your other projects rather than me burying the function inside this expert advisor. Standard inputs, because this is a moving average cross, I've got the fast and the slow period, and then I've added this profit target. Now that target is in your currency of your MetaTrader account. That's not the currency of the trade that you're executing. So we're looking at this, if this were a US dollar account, for example, I'd be looking at a $10 profit target. And that is the point where if the most recent trade is in profit by $10, then I can enter a new trade. And then the usual lot size, magic number, and trade comment. Now, MetaTrader 5 only, I have the fast handle and the slow handle, as you should be aware by now, because I need those to manage the indicators where I don't need them with MetaTrader 4. Let me go back to the split screen view. And in MetaTrader 5, also to make trade execution easier, I have included trade/trade.mqh. Now that is included with MetaTrader, so that file's already there for you, and that gives me access to two classes, the ctrade class and the cpositioninfo. So I've declared variables for both of those, type ctrade, and I've just called that trade, and type cpositioninfo, and I've just called that positioninfo. So now if I scroll down and keep these two aligned, the onInit function for both of these, in MetaTrader 4 there is nothing to do in the onInit, and so I simply do return init succeeded. In MetaTrader 5 though, I set up the two indicators, and I also set the expert magic number on the trade object. That's this trade variable here, because I set that once at the beginning of the code and then I don't need to worry about it again later. So the function for that is trade.setExpertMagicNumber, and there's the input magic value. And then I create the two handles to the indicators, fast handle and slow handle. They are both calls to IMA, that's the moving average indicator function, passing the chart symbol, the chart period, the duration being the fast period from the input and the slow from the input. Zero shift in both cases, and I'm just using simple moving average and price close because this is just a demonstration. The dinit function, nothing for MetaTrader 4, but for MetaTrader 5 I need to release these two handles. So I call indicator release fast handle and then indicator release slow handle. On tick, I've just created a fairly simple type expert advisor here. As I said, it doesn't really work. I've just put in some functions that might be typical in this type of expert advisor. First thing though, in MetaTrader 5, I declare this double buffer array. I set that as a series, and that means that index 0 in that buffer will match bar number 0. So array set as series buff comma true, And then I get values from the fast and slow handle by calling copy buffer fast handle buffer number 0. Moving average has only one buffer, and that's buffer number 0, beginning at position 0 for 3 values, and store those in buff. I do the same for the slow handle down here, and in between those two I grab the values from buffer number 1, or rather from index number 1 of the buffer and index number 2, and that gives me the fast moving averages from bars 1 and 2. And then I do the same for the slow moving averages from bars 1 and 2. MetaTrader 4, it's a different function. It's still called IMA, and a lot of the arguments are the same. All the way down here, symbol, period, input fast period, 0 for shift. I'm doing simple moving average and price close, but there's one additional argument for MetaTrader 4, and that's the bar number. Because with MetaTrader 4, I call the IMA function for each value that I want to get. I don't call it to get an array of values. But I'm doing the same thing. I'm capturing fast 1, fast 2, slow 1, and slow 2. And that's by calling IMA using the fast period or the slow period. And in this last argument, specifying bar number 1 or 2. So after those two blocks of code, I've got them aligned again here at this scale in function. And by this point I have the fast and slow moving average values for bar 1 and 2. Now the scale in is the function that I'm going to show later, because that's the subject of this video, and that is where I determine if the most recent trade is in sufficient profit, and if it is, then I can enter a new trade. So I call scale in, I'm calling update trailing stop, and I have nothing in that update trailing stop function. It's just there as a placeholder to show the sort of thing you might do. Close at loss might be that I'm setting up some kind of trailing stop loss, and so I have this close at loss function, but it also has nothing there. And these are reasons why this particular expert advisor won't actually work. There is nothing to close trades. After dealing with the scaling in, updating the trailing stop, and closing at loss, I then have a call to the new bar function. And if not new bar, then return, because I only want to open new trades at the beginning of a new bar. I've also put the new bar function into, let me scroll back up, into this scalein.mqh, just so that these type of common functions are in one place if you do download this from GitHub. If not new bar, return, and that's the same on MetaTrader 4 and 5. And then I do a fairly simple comparison. If the fast moving average for bar 1 is above the slow moving average, so fast 1 greater than slow 1, and not the fast moving average for bar 2 is above the slow moving average for bar 2. That means I've had a cross in the upward direction. So I'm calling trade open function for order type buy. I do the same thing in the opposite direction then. If the fast moving average for bar 1 is less than the slow moving average for bar 1, so fast is below slow, and not the fast moving average for bar 2 is less than the slow moving average for bar 2. So I've crossed in a downward direction. Then I call trade open order type sell. And that's the same in MetaTrader 4. That code is exactly the same. Let's just go to the trade open function. And this is my standard function for this moving average cross example. I simply grab the price, which is, depending if the type is an order type buy, then let me expand that to full screen. I use symbol info double, symbol, and the ask price, because that's the entry price for a buy. And if it's not a buy, it must be a sell. So symbol info double, symbol, symbol underscore bid. And that gives me the entry price for the trade. And for MetaTrader 5, I then call trade.positionOpen, chart symbol, type, which is here, which is an order type buy or sell, the lot size from the inputs, price from here, 0 stop loss and 0 take profit, and the trade comment. The magic number has always been set on this trade object that you saw at the beginning, and that returns a Boolean. This position open function returns Boolean, and I simply return that. I'm not doing anything in this expert advisor with that result, but I'm returning a Boolean from the trade open function. If I look at the MetaTrader 4 version of this, same calculation for price. This is exactly the same, but to place an order for MetaTrader 4, I call the order send function. Arguments are very similar though. The symbol, the type, lot size, entry price, but then there is also a slippage, which I'm setting to 0, and stop loss and take profit. the trade comment, and for MetaTrader 4 the magic number is part of the arguments to the order send function. The order send for MetaTrader 4 returns a ticket number, not a boolean, and if that ticket number is greater than 0, then the trade has been placed successfully. So I'm actually returning here, you can see I've got brackets there surrounding this. My result, which is a boolean, says if the order send is greater than 0. So if I have a valid ticket number, then the order send was successful and I return the result. Now back to the side-by-side comparison, and this is where I've built the scale in function. So remember, scroll back up a little bit here, I'm calling this scale in. So at each tick I'm determining whether I can enter a new trade or add a trade to my position. And I'm doing that for both the buy and the sell because I haven't bothered to take account here of whether I'm currently in an upward or a downward trend. I'm simply calling it for whichever trades I have open. So I'm calling scale in by type, order type buy, and order type sell. And that's just to make it easier than repeating the code. Because if I go to the scale in by type, keeping both of these lined up, I'm saying is position in minimum profit, and that's the function that I've got in the include file, which we're about to get to, and that's the key of this video. So if the position is in minimum profit, and the arguments for that are the symbol, magic number, trade type, and the profit target. And that will simply tell me boolean, true or false, if that most recent trade has reached minimum profit, and if it has, then I call the trade open again, which is this same trade open function for that type. So this code is the same for buy or sell, the only change is the type. So rather than repeat that code in here, I've created a second function called scale in by type. Just makes it a little easier and cleaner. And that's the same for MetaTrader 4 and 5, exactly the same code. I mentioned the update trailing stop and the close at loss. Nothing here. For trailing stop, you could probably have code to move to break even and then maybe trail the stop loss once you have scaled into the position with this scale in by type. And for close at loss, perhaps you have a stop loss that you want to manage, or maybe you're looking at the price moving back to the most recent trade level. I don't know. I've just put these here as placeholder functions because I'm not really showing an EA algorithm here. I'm just showing how to do this scaling in. So that then leads us to the is position in minimum profit, and that's in the include file. To make it easier for you to load this into your own code if you want to, it's in this Orchard Tutorials scalein.mqh. So I'll open that now and just go full screen on that. Here's the new bar function. Takes a number of arguments: the symbol, time frame, and init to now. I'll show what that does. First variable here is a date time, which is the current bar time, and I'm getting the start time for bar number 0. So that's with the iTime function using the symbol from here. And if you don't supply the symbol, then the value will be null, which is the current chart symbol. And then enum timeframes for the time frame, which if you don't supply a time frame, the default will be 0, which will default to the current chart time frame. So the iTime function returns the start time of bar number 0 in this case for the supplied symbol and time frame. Next I have a static date time previous bar time, which depending whether you set init to now, and the default here is false. So if init to now is true, and I'm using the ternary operator, then previous bar time will be initialized to the current bar time. And if init to now is false, it will be initialized to 0. And the difference there is if you say init to now is false, then previous bar time is going to begin at 0, which is going to be different to the current bar time. So on the very first call to this function, you will get a true value back. And if you override that default value and set init to now equal to true, then previous bar time will be initialized to the current bar time, which means that on the very first call to this, previous bar time is the same as current bar time, and you'll get false because that's not a new bar. So it really is a choice of whether you want your expert advisor to trade as soon as it's opened, or if you would rather wait until the next bar starts after you start up your expert advisor. But once I've got the previous and the current bar time, I simply compare them. If previous bar time is equal to current bar time, return false because it's not a new bar. And And if they are different, then it'll fall through to this line of code, and I then set previous bar time equal to current bar time so that the next time through they are the same, and return true because I do have a new bar. Now down to the position in minimum profit, and this code is different for MetaTrader 4 and 5, so I've included this hash ifdef underscore underscore MQL4 underscore underscore endif, and for MetaTrader 5 there's the hashdiff MQL5. Start with the MetaTrader 4 because it's at the top of the screen. The arguments symbol, magic number, order type, and minimum profit amount. Remember, this minimum profit is in your account currency. So I'm doing a loop through all of the orders for MetaTrader 4 for int I equals orders total. That should be orders total minus 1. So for int I equals orders total minus 1, while I is greater than or equal to 0, I minus minus, so I'm counting down. If a trade can't be selected, then it may be a trade that I'm interested in, and so I'm simply going to return false. So if not order select position I select by position mode trades, then I return false. The implication of missing a trade, if it happens to be a trade that I am interested in and for some reason it couldn't be retrieved, then perhaps I would be scaling in when I shouldn't be. So I'm preferring in this case to return false and say I can't prove that all of my trades have made sufficient profit. But assuming I can select that order, then I'm comparing the order symbol. So order symbol is equal to the supplied symbol, and order magic number is equal to the supplied magic number, and the order type is equal to the supplied type. So that means this is a trade that I'm looking at. And then I simply say if the order profit is less than the supplied minimum profit. Now, order profit will return the profit on an individual trade in your account currency. So if order profit is less than minimum profit, then I know that there is at least one trade out there that hasn't reached that minimum profit level, and I return false. There's no point in looking at any further trades. I don't care whether it's the first trade or the last trade. I'm simply saying there is a trade out there that hasn't achieved minimum profit, so I should not scale in. And if you think about it, this has to be the closest trade to the current price. If I manage to fall through this, I've looked through all of the orders and I get to this point, then I can say I haven't exited because I've found a trade that doesn't work. So I can simply return true, and that means that all of my trades for this symbol, magic number, and type have at least achieved this minimum profit. And so by returning true there, it goes back to the expert advisor, which can scale in by opening a new trade. So looking at the MetaTrader 5 version, largely the same, and I've made the same mistake here. So same arguments, symbol, magic number, type, and minimum profit. In this case though, I am looking at positions total rather than orders total. So for int I equals positions total minus 1, while I is greater than or equal to 0, I minus minus, so I'm counting down. If any position cannot be selected, same thing here, but the selection here is done with the position info. Now, although this is in an include library, I'm assuming that you have created an object of type cPositionInfo and you've called it positionInfo. Now, perhaps that's not what I should have done, but I have done that here because I do that by default always. So if not positionInfo.select by index I, now that will simply attempt to select the same way the order select does for MetaTrader 4. That will simply select that particular position into memory. If I can't do that, I return false for exactly the same reasons. It might be something I'm interested in, and perhaps the inability to select is due to some error somewhere, and I would rather not scale in that case. These conditions are largely the same, but I'm able to use the positionInfo class. So positionInfo.symbol is equal to symbol, .magic is equal to magic, and .type is equal to type. So the same conditions there. That means this is a trade that I'm looking at, and exactly the same thing here, but using positionInfo. If positionInfo.profit is less than the target minimum profit, then return false. And if I fall through here, I've looped through all of the positions, I can return true. So these are the key functions for this topic. The is position in minimum profit, and that will simply return a Boolean to tell me if I have all of my trades have achieved this minimum profit, and if they have, then I know that I can safely scale in with a new trade. Now this code is available on GitHub. There will be a link in the description for you to find the code. If you would like to see similar videos, if there are particular problems you'd like to see how I would approach them and how I would code them, and if you would like to have a tutorial made for these, there is also a link in the description where you can go to a forum page and enter the details of the problem you're facing, and we'll assess those, and if it's suitable, then we may make a video on that topic in the future. If you found this useful, then please click that like button. And if you want to see more of our videos, click subscribe, and then if you click the bell icon, you'll be notified when we do release the next video. Thank you for watching.